Hey everyone, got a slightly different video for you today. It's not only going to be this deck list here, but it's going to be a kind of review over nationals and all that sort of stuff, and you'll hear the the winner and loser of our fantasy draft and the considered forfeit. Okay, well I'll start by talking about my nationals run. This was the deck I used. Seismitoad Giratina. Basically, I've used it all season, and there's a lot of value to be had in using a deck you just know really well. There are people who always do well with Night March because they know it. It might not even be the right specific call for that meta, but in fact, Totina was, I think, a pretty good call for this meta. I assumed about half my rounds would be Night March, and I played 4 out of 8 Night Marches. I did assume I'd face a couple of what's that thing called? Greninja, that's it. And unfortunately I lose kind of all the time to Greninja. I managed to lose one and tie one, and against the Marchers I won 3, lost 1. I also assumed some kind of trainer lock, which I myself was, and something like Sceptile. I'll go through my rounds. Round 1 I played Jackold of Omnipoke, so go check out their channel. He was playing Greninja, really good at player actually. He made top 32 that day and then won the regional the next day, so 250 points from one weekend without having gone to many events or got many before. He was a person I was actually considering giving a scoop to, but slight competitiveness kind of takes over in that environment. I managed to tie the Greninja game, which was an uphill struggle. I lost game 1, I managed to win game 2 with 30 seconds left on the clock, so you know, yeah, I had to kind of take that. Round 2 I played a Scottish chap playing, it was Mega Sceptile, but it had some speed elements to it. It had max elixirs, it had more fighting fury belts than spirit links, I think. He flipped absurdly well with birches. I think he got 9 out of 10 heads and sleep poisons, and kept drawing back into energy and another birch to use, and well, that was very irritating, and I lost game 1 pretty quick. I decided to scoop that and just went for like a fairly quick win. I won game 2 fairly, and then game 3 started with about 5-6 minutes on the clock, and so I saw a way to win that. I just went for killing 2 Spinnerax with Toad, killing 1 EX, and then Giratinaing the last Shaman, and his sleep poisons got very much in the way of that, but I managed to pull it out on turn 1 of time, I believe, so I was quite happy about that. Then I played against a good friend Ben Pollock playing Night March. I won that 2-0. It's a bit uneventful. He didn't draw amazingly well, and Totina tends to beat Night March in that situation. It can lose, of course. And round 4 I was actually on stream. It was a really cool game. I was against Ryan Moorhouse, another person I was considering scooping to give the chance to top 32, but he left it up to me, and unfortunately I just didn't. The amount I had to fight to win that game, well, you can go see it for yourself. I'll link the stream down below. I believe it's around the half-an-hour mark we start the round, and I had to really fight for that game, and I felt very accomplished when I won, and I'm actually still amazed now that I won. I was very happy with how I played the Absol, to be honest. Not normally something I'm happy with how my own play, but I was in this case. There's also around about a 12-minute interview after with Joe Bernard from Omnipoke again, so he was interviewing, I believe that was his first one of the day. He was interviewing stream winners, and he interviewed me, and yeah, really good fun having a chat with him and talking about the deck, and meeting Puka obviously, so that was great. Really like being on stream. Normally I'm really nervous on the stream. I think I was, and so was Ryan, but Ryan and I have played so many times, and you know, I'd say we're very good friends by this point. He's in fact possibly coming to the city where I currently live. I'm not saying that in case people dox me. He's coming hopefully here to university, and so he'll be another great playtesting partner, and you know, join us for tournaments in the car. be a shame that means his dad might not be playing as much unless he comes. But yeah, really good game still. Maybe the hardest game I've ever had in which I've won, if that makes sense. So I took that, and then next round I again played someone I was very strongly considering scooping to, but that was Tamal Cameron, another really good friend, another really good player. I did not have an easy national to run. Hopefully you'll see an interview or something with him on the Pokemon TCG HQ channel. They 2 winners in a row. That's last year Alex Dow / Ollie Fenley, and this year Alex Dow / Tamal Cameron. So the Custard Cream boys are currently beating us pretty bad, but Tamal picked a really good deck for the format in Vileplume Vespiquen. In our games he honestly got, considering how the deck is, got very unlucky. He missed turn 1 Plume all 3 games. In fact, game 1 I believe he got it turn 2, but that extra turn 1 of setup, I believe, actually, did I lose that game or win that game? I believe I won that game. I might have lost, I don't even remember. Extra turn of setup, just for any deck against Vileplume Vespiquen, can be game breaking. I got enough turns game 2 and 3, I believe, to actually Chaos Wheel both games and effectively just straight out win the game by doing so. Chaos Wheel where he has 0 energy left. Game 3, in fact, he got really unlucky. Don't think he saw an oddish till turn 3. I don't know how that even happened, but my luck just about outfortuned him that game. I did have 3 double dragon in, say, the bottom 8 or 9 cards, but I drew it on literally the last turn before I would be then losing the game in order to take that series, and he understood me not giving the scoop, and very graciously took the loss. And I believe he only dropped 3 games. Oh, he's a national champ national champ this year. I don't know if I mentioned that. He only dropped 3 games the whole weekend. 1 in the final, I believe, and those 2 to me. So I'll take that. The only loss the national champ had was to myself. So I believe at this point I was 4-0-1. So I had to win 2 of the next 3 to get in, and next round I was paired against another friend, Rick Cherry, playing Greninja. He played it really well. I judged him about 20 times maybe over the series of the games. I don't know if I just kept judging and judging, trying to get him out of energy and out of the chance of Jirachi, but unfortunately that didn't work so well. I ended up running out of resources 1 game, I believe, and then just losing the other. So very well played to him. He in fact made top 8, lost quite a close top 8 game, I believe, on time, so a bit of a shame, but that's the way it goes. So at this point I was 4-1-1. Got paired against a Night March. I'm not sure who he was. I think he was doing very well sitting at 4-1-1, but I don't think I've ever seen him at tournament before. I just won that one 2-0. A Night March player who isn't the best Night March players will tend to be beaten kind of reasonably easily, but some of the except for him, all Night Marchers I faced that day put up a really good fight. Ben didn't draw so well, but he still put up a good fight. And so at this point I was 5-1-1, and I just had to win the last round to get in. Unfortunately, I was paired down, which I thought would be a good thing, because at a pair down, very likely you'll just be scooped, because there's no chance they can get into cut while you can, and there was absolutely no chance for my opponent to get into cut. But I didn't want to push that, try and force a scoop. It's not pleasant, and obviously against the rules. So I only mentioned it after the game in which the match slip was already signed, just so I could freely mention it. And unfortunately, I won game 1, and then game 2 and 3 were basically dead draws where he drew more or less through his whole deck and managed to beat me. It's a real big shame. And of course, as I said, he didn't make cut. Came 9th and not on resistance. He came 9th on record, and so I just about missed cut there on dead drawing. One of those games hadn't been a horrendous dead draw. May have seen myself in the top 8, anywhere from positions 5, 6 or 7. and as I'm not sure exactly with my resistance, but a bit of a shame to miss out on the last nationals. I did go quite for it in that tournament, but so trying to survive 8 rounds and winning 6 and losing 1, tying 1 is actually quite hard. Being paired against two Greninjas, which is a really bad matchup, is obviously not ever going to help that case. And but I got it about right going against 4 Marchers, and I went 3-1 in those, so I think I'm pretty happy overall with my result. Unfortunately, I came in 18th, didn't get a playmat, didn't get any packs, got championship points which I didn't need due to having an invite, but so be it. The list is up here. I believe I've talked about this deck in in great detail, so I'm not going to go too much into it. I'll just talk about a few little things that I played that maybe some people didn't. I played one Absol. That was for Night March and Jirachis. Basically, this deck dies a horrible, horrible death to Jirachi. So getting a hit in first with, say, a Quaking Punch, then being able to, say, Lysander something up, hit that, move the damage from those things to Jirachi can be a game winner. And obviously that will require 2 Absol hits, sometimes just the 1 if you can Lysander the Jirachi itself. But with 4 Super Scoop Ups, AZ, Cassius, 4 puzzles, that tends to happen. I missed a Super Scoop Up on the stream, which would have given me that exact thing on some Night March, to kill some Night Marchers, but you know, you can't assume all Super Scoop Up's going to be heads. I went down to, say, 2 Giratina, 3 Double Dragon, because Toad was is the real king, really. In most matchups, you want to start Toad and be Quaking Punching until you're going to take the last, well, 2 to 4 prizes, often, with Greninja, knocking out, say, 2 Shamans. I cut down to 1 Headringer because EXs are not as big. This Headringer was often just for the 1 Shaman to stop an ongoing Shaman loop. I upped to 2 Judge, basically going first against Greninja, which I think both rounds I went against Greninja, I went second, unfortunately. You judge them turn 1, hope they draw nothing, Quaking Punch, and hope for the win. I played 2 Fury Belt, and I like the 1 Muscle Band to hit a bit of extra damage to move with Absol. Say if you hit into a Froakie, which has 60 HP, with a Fury Belted Quaking Punch, you do 40. Then if you move 30 of that damage, it's only taken 10 damage, so another Fury Belted Quaking Punch doesn't kill it. However, if you hit with a Muscle Banded Quaking Punch, then move the 30 damage, it's now on 20 damage, that's it, so it can still die, and a Frogadier in fact can die, as can a Jirachi or a Pumpkaboo. You can move 30 to Joltix as well, which helps in certain situations. I played 4 puzzles because this is quite a resource heavy deck, and obviously you have to Sycamore. I actually cut down to 3 Sycamore to fit in the second Judge, worth noting. You have to Sycamore at some point of the game, and as much as you don't really want to, like, you want to be using Flare Grunt and Xerosic. Against most decks, you actually don't end up using Flare Grunts and Xerosics too much. Against Night March, doesn't really happen. You'd rather just be Quaking Punching and getting your Crushing Hammers in, because you'll likely need Sycamore and Judge. And against Greninja, they never have an NG active anyway. So, yeah, so what was I saying? I played 4 puzzle because you need to get resources back, often the energies. Against the Sceptile, I actually got back double Crushing Hammer, I believe, after playing 2. And I believe I got 1 out of 2, then 1 out of 2, and I needed to remove 1 off the active, 1 off the bench Sceptile, and that actually won me the game. I ran 0 stadiums because basically I didn't really find this deck to need a stadium. There's nothing too big for this deck that actually helps it. Rough Seas isn't really too helpful. It just heals Greninja. In fact, it can heal Joltik as well, which can be really painful. So I just played Delinquent to remove my opponent's stadiums if I need to. And the fact I can get it back several times is really good. Against Greninja, often a Judge plus Delinquent's actually game winning. 1 Cassius I really like, just putting in one of the attackers back in the deck without losing its energy is really nice. Putting it in the deck after it taking loads of damage, and being able to just search it back out with Ultra Ball. It's often better than putting it back into hand because you don't lose the tool it has, you don't lose the energy. You can put Absol back in the deck and Ultra Ball it. So I just played this alongside AZ. And honestly, that's about the list. I played one Escape Rope for Jirachi, Escape Rope Lysander plays, that sort of thing. Cut to 3 Double Dragon just because of space. And that was more or less space just to fit in 4 puzzles. I'm pretty happy with this list overall. Really happy with my performance personally. A lot of people, all the people I played, well, it's mostly a pleasure, except when I lost. But yeah, it's fairly well run. I think the majority of the judges were okay, though there was an issue where they kept coming and fiddling with the deck when you're about to make a play, or say about to draw from the deck, and they move your deck into a position. It's like, just you know, just hold off and wait a second. They kept turning stadiums sideways, when actually that's first of all terrible when it comes to the fact that stadiums exist where you have to put them vertically. Means that that's how stadiums are supposed to go, and they kept turning them sideways and then telling off, weirdly enough, the other person. The number of times I got told off by the positioning of a stadium was quite absurd, considering I run none. And they often did it, say, in the middle of important plays when it's actually not affecting the game state at all. And it's not in a position where the people, both players, can't read it. If it's put one way, the person can just pick it up. So, and that's nonsense anyway, because you have to pick up the parallel to read the other side of it. So it's a really terrible excuse. They cared about some really small finicky things, and then on occasion missed big things even on the stream. But that was mostly on occasion. They did it a bit too much. They cared a bit too much about things looking really neat and tidy, rather than, you know, things actually going well and not annoying the players. They seem to not really care too much about the players in many cases. Obviously not all the judges, and I don't know if that was like that they were told that's what they had to do, but judges would just be walking around looking for a slightly skewed. I swear my deck was at 10 degrees and it was turned. I was just put it down to finish shuffling or something for my opponent to cut. Like, you don't have to put the deck vertically for that. It's especially, I believe it was a friendly game as well, as a tournament game, but it was with a friend, so it was quite friendly. Yeah, a bit pointless. The stream went really well. Commentators were all amazing. It's nice seeing that Puka was over, and David Hockman from Rappelman, I don't know how you pronounce that, came up. He was over as well, looking more like Steven every day. And yeah, all fantastic. As Joe from Omnipoke, as I said, and one of our own, Nicholas Pearce, also Xanatu TCG, but he's really Team Cake channel, let's be honest. And yeah, pretty well run. Our Nats Fantasy Draft has a very interesting final result. I ended up picking the winner, so I was quite happy about that. I picked him out. Rob, who ended up not coming, picked quite a few people who scored high. Adam basically scored no one, and he will be the loser of our draft, and with Rob as the winner. And I'm not sure if anyone remembers, but his punishment is to be wearing, let me see, it was I believe it was the first 5 tournaments. The first tournament he'll be wearing a schoolgirl's uniform, and the second one a jockstrap, and alternating. So look out for him at a regional near you. I will obviously not be enforcing this, but he better do it. So yeah, moving forward with this deck back into Fates Collide. We haven't done a proper set review because it's kind of underway. We may still do a set review, but this deck I'm not sure how well it survives going into the next set. But that's because of things like, say, Marowak and Carbink. The non-safeguard Carbink is a problem. I can't remove basic energies of basic Pokemon, and the safeguard Carbink's also a problem because you need Hex Maniac just to touch it. But I thought of a few things. So first of all, the judges are not quite as big. I would cut them to ends. Second of all, I'm not quite as convinced the format is going to be quite as resource heavy as I previously thought. So I'd probably end up just cutting all the puzzles. As nice an idea as they were, that will end up being the case. And for that I'd be putting in probably a second hex, a fourth sycamore for more draw. I believe there's going to be a bit more EX action. I may go up to, say, the third shaman and probably the fourth double dragon just to be sure. Going up to 3 shaman seems fairly reasonable. I still probably will go to 0 stadiums, or I may just cut the Hex Maniac for a silent lab. So think about that. It's probably what I'd do. Cut shaman back to 2 since probably don't need it as much, and then I'd probably just chuck in a silent lab and a parallel city, which you have to put vertically, you remember that. So this, if this deck were to survive next format, this would probably be similar to how I'd make it. I'm not really 100% because I'm not giving it too much thought. Been trying a few other decks and things, as you'll probably hear in our upcoming set review. Hopefully upcoming set review, I should say. And well, yeah, that's basically my Nationals report and kind of a review of the event. There was a few issues with obviously expensive food and things like that, but that's to be expected at all those kinds of events. There was another issue in that there was no pay trip for TCG, but yeah, for Pokken there was $3,000 for the winner and 2 pay trips. It's a bit of a shame there's a bit less investment in the TCG there, but I guess that's to be expected. Fighting games always rake in more. One thing as well was the fact that there was no free trip. Didn't seem to put off too many people coming, but it did put off enough that there were a lot of good players who were unaccounted for. But still, Nationals reached 192 people in attendance, which is the highest UK tournament I believe we've ever had, which is really good, but I think it may have been high enough for a Day 2 top 32 had they kept just the promise of a single free trip. Not that obviously anyone's entitled to it, but it just gave incentive, or has previously given incentive, for every single person to try at Nationals. It's a bit disappointing as well, because by not doing that there was more pressure for certain people in certain points brackets to potentially be scooping. For example, my points bracket, I'd only got 300, so 300 to say 500 had more or less no chance of top 22, therefore paid trip. But so there was not too much incentive to win, so there was a bit of pressure onto that, but obviously everyone in the end can just play how they want. But had they told us that much earlier, for example, they would have had in fact higher attendance at regionals. I, for example, believed it was only going to be there was going to be a chance for the trip at top 22, not the top 22, a trip for winning Nationals. So I didn't attend any more events after the regional in which I got my final points. However, had I known that wasn't the case and they had announced it before, I'd have attended a few more, aiming for just a few, maybe like the top 8 or something would put me in at least better stead, considering I have no league challenge points and such. At least slightly better stead to hit top 22, so I'd have maybe tried a bit harder, or in fact gone to more events, which is kind of what they want. So a bit of a shame there. Mostly that we didn't get the free trip, second of all that they didn't announce it, but that's been and gone now. Tamal, I believe, will have a free trip from hitting 1100 something points. Ryan Moorhouse, I believe, will hit exactly 1000, maybe a bit higher, I can't exactly remember. So he's in good stead for a free trip. There may be some other UK players, I can't remember off the top of my head. There are many seniors, so Yasin Balila, Adam, unfortunately, Balila had a bit of an incident. I think he fainted, so missed his last round, in which all he had to do was say ID. So a bit of a disappointment there. Could have had more UK players in top 22, even in seniors. Joshua Tallman, unfortunately, Seb Simmons missed, I believe, by one game, like a tie or a double game loss, and same thing happened at ECC, and he missed narrowly the top 22. But I believe him and his dad, who also narrowly missed top 22, are both going to Worlds, so that's really good. And yeah, they've so we've had a lot of good success, a lot of good UK players, you know, showing how good they really are. The stream was an amazing success, mostly all around fairly good nationals. It didn't quite feel like it was a good send-off for nationals in terms of tournaments. How we know, you know, we're not going to be having more, as far as we know, nationals in the upcoming years. It's going to be like three big European tournaments to stop the top 22 business or something. But didn't feel like a proper send-off, but that's the way it is. Really good that Tamal won it, though. I'm very happy that he's labelled as our last national champion, and he picked a really good deck. And there should be a lot of UK players at Worlds, so for any non-UK viewers, just say hi if you know us via YouTube or whatever, and hopefully we'll make a good UK showing this year and get a lot of our players into day 2, and who knows, maybe a champion this year, but we'll have to practice and test amongst ourselves. So yeah, I kind of rambled on there. This is completely unscripted, but that's just the way I do it. So alright, well, that was my nationals wrap up review. This is my deck list. This is not my deck list. You saw my nationals deck list. This is a possible list going forward. Personally, I probably won't be playing this, but playing what you know is a really strong thing, and it's a really take-home message for me this nationals was, if you just play what you know, even if it's not necessarily the best deck, you're more likely to do more well with it. One thing is, I always try to meta deck or pick the right thing, but sometimes I'm just not comfortable with what seems like it might be the best deck, and in which case just play something you're comfortable with. It's the way you're going to do best, or the way at least I'm going to do best. So enough rambling. I'll see you all another time. Hope you enjoy this video. Goodbye.